Why would an indie game developer give up on their game? Is quitting a project inherently a bad thing? Is there a point where you should just call it quits? Well, I'm an indie game developer and I just gave up on a game that I've been working on for nearly a year. Let's talk about why. For those of you that have been following the last few devlogs I've made, yes, I have decided to put Too Much Quests on the shelf, though I won't say the project is dead, it's just no longer what I'm currently working on. And I'll talk more about the reasons behind that and why I think it's the right call in this video, but if that breaks your heart, stick around and I'll tell you how you can play the early tester demo for free. And maybe getting to play what I made so far yourself will help you understand some of the points that I'm going to be making in this video. Now by the end of this, I'm going to tell you 4 reasons you should seriously consider letting go of an indie game, and also a few reasons why you shouldn't. I'll also give you some advice on how to move forward in the best way possible if you do decide to let that game you're working on go. To be clear, this is not about giving up on your game dev dream. It's about knowing when it's time to give up on a particular game that you might be working on. And the distinction there is very important. On this channel, we only move forward, we do not move back. And I promise you that sometimes even quitting is the best way to keep moving forward. Alright, so first and foremost, let me just say that these are just my opinions, and a lot of my thoughts on this are based around just maintaining healthy practices for indie game devs who are looking to grow. And again, these are just my opinions. You can give up on a game at any time for any reason, especially if game dev isn't your full-time job. However, I do often see people give up on a game for the wrong reasons, take the wrong lessons from the experience, and hurt their growth towards being the game developer they've always dreamed of being. So before I give you the reasons why you should give up, let's talk about the reasons you shouldn't. The first reason I see people give up on a game, and a reason I think is very invalid, is that you just think you're not a real game developer, or you don't think that you'll be good enough. And that is just not true. I'm telling you that imposter syndrome will hit you like a ton of bricks. You'll be working on a game and you'll start to feel like you're not good enough, or that you're not a real game developer. But let me tell you this, if you are working on a game, you are a game developer. And as far as not being good enough, you can reach whatever talent level that you aspire to be if you're willing to put in the work. Talent is not the right term you should be using. What you should be looking at is skill. And skill can be taught, skill can be learned, and this isn't an ad for Skillshare. This is just a genuine point that I'm making. The only thing stopping you from being at the skill level that you want to be at is that you're not putting in the effort and you're not putting in the time. When I started working on games, I knew nothing. I didn't know anything about the art side of things, I didn't know anything at all about the coding side of things, and I'd never worked in a game engine before. The most experience you could say that I had was playing a lot of games and doing some 2D art. But I put in the work, I spent the time, I taught myself with I didn't pay a dime to teach myself how to get to where I am. Now I'm not trying to be a pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but I am going to tell you that you can pretty much get to whatever skill level you want just by putting in the work and watching the right YouTube videos. But if you're telling yourself you're not good enough, you're wrong. You can be as good as you want to be if you put in the work. But there is one more that I want to mention, and that's that I don't think it's ever a good idea to quit on a game just because you've grown bored with it. And this primarily only applies to new game developers. There's this trend that I see a lot of game developers fall into where they start working on a project and then after a little bit of time they get bored, they get maybe frustrated, and then they just drop it because they've got another idea that they're excited about now. And it's always easy when you're starting at the beginning to just play with things and get things going. It's harder when you actually have to apply yourself and start getting to the nitty-gritty details. And I see a lot of game developers drop a project and then drop the next project and the next project, and then look back after so long and they don't even have a game made. So if you're a new game developer, you're trying to progress, don't drop the project that you're working on just because you get a little bored. Trust me, there are a lot of other reasons why it's okay to drop a project, and we'll get to those right now. And I'll be using my own game that I've now put on the shelf to make some of these points. Number 1, it's just not something that you can reasonably do. I think every new indie game developer goes into their first project wanting to make something that's like a AAA, an Assassin's Creed or something like that. Some big, exciting, dramatic, open world project that's just going to blow people's socks off and is going to be massive and have all these worlds to explore and be everything you've always wanted to play. I mean, obviously, that's why we're trying to make games, right? To play the things that we want to play. But the truth is, especially if you're a solo indie game developer, reasonably, you're not going to be able to make a project like that unless you spend like years or maybe decades on it if you're just working by yourself. Especially, and this is where a lot of people get stuck, if you keep adding new mechanics to your game. These days, every game, no matter what it is, has to have a crafting system, and a durability system, and a morality meter, and loot boxes, and a map the size of Central America, and 50 different random things you're supposed to keep track of and explore and do in this world. Not to mention character customization, and online multiplayer, and 1,000 other little things that are going to build up to be something that you cannot feasibly do. That's called scope creep. That's when a game starts as one thing and just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where you just cannot do that. Unfortunately, you are going to be limited by your ability to do things, the time that you have. That's why some of the best indie games are very, very focused. They have a thing that they're doing, that's what their game is about, and they do it. But especially if you're someone like me that works a full-time job, sometimes I'm working 50 plus hours a week, and I'm doing my indie game development as a hobby on the side just because it's something I'm passionate about. I don't have the time to put all of this different stuff into my game to make a game that is so massive that it compares in any way to a AAA game. And yet, that's exactly what I ended up trying to do with Too Much Quests. I'll talk more about my original idea when I'm making a later point, but the truth is, the original idea that I had for this game was so different and so much smaller than what I find myself making. Or I guess I should say found myself making, because again, I'm not actively working on this at the moment. And it's just a series of things that led to this, but at the end of the day, what I was left with was this massive game with all these different open world islands to explore, all of this different unlockable character customization, an entire card combat battler system, which was not a part of the original plan, by the way, several different types of collectibles, hundreds of potential quest lines that you had to keep track of. And then at a certain point, I'm even going, what if you have like this home island that's like your own little protected space and you can like customize it and have this cozy little area that... It's too much. It's too much. Again, I work a factory job. I work 50 plus hours a week, and I'm doing this in my spare time. Reasonably, if I want to make a game and like actually make it, put it out there, this game that I have just described to you is not feasibly going to happen. Now, remember earlier when I said this game wasn't dead? It's not. And here's my advice to you if this is one of the reasons you're considering giving up on your game. If it's not something that you can reasonably do, find a way to see if you can pare it down to a more bite-sized, manageable feature. For me, it came down to looking at what is the aspect of this game that excited me in the first place. And by doing this, I realized that really what I had is an original concept that I created, which is its own separate thing, and then this sort of card battler system that I find myself being pulled to make. And so then I asked myself, what parts of this do not suit this core experience that I could create? And so rather than just throwing this in the trash and giving up and abandoning it, realistically what I'm doing is working on another project that I have a more clear idea about. And in the background, I'm going to be figuring out how I can rework this into the most bite-sized but still complete feeling project that it can be. And I have some ideas. It's not going to be an open world game. You'll have a lot less collectibles. And realistically, I know this is heresy for a game called Too Much Quests, but a lot less quests. And I know that there's a way that I can do that, and somewhere down the line I'm going to come back to it, cut it to pieces, and make something that I can actually make out of it. Reason number 2, it's just not working. Okay, let's say you've got an idea that you think that you can reasonably do. You put the work into it, you make a demo, you start playing it, you have other people play it, and it's just not working. Something about it just is not working. A lot of times this comes down to design. It doesn't feel good to play. It has too many different parts fighting against each other. There's not a clear gameplay loop. There's a lot of reasons why your game might not be working. And if it's not, you can either do what I talked about before, where you try and salvage the different parts, or pare it down to something that works, or maybe if it's not working, you just have to give it up. There's this concept called the sunk cost fallacy. It's a sort of psychology term that talks about how if you spend a lot of time on something, you're going to be real hesitant to give up or let that go because you're going to feel like you've wasted all of that time. Well, I'm here to tell you, with something like game development, you have not wasted that time. You can count it as practice. It's more experience. It is going to help you propel into whatever your next project is. And so if your game's not working and you can't find a way to make it work, sometimes it is just better to drop it. Yes, of course, you can keep workshopping mechanics and try and figure out what you could do to make it work. But if it just sort of feels like the entire thing isn't working, that might be a good reason to consider letting it go. Reason number 3, you're making it for the wrong reasons. Maybe your game project started out as something you're excited about, and then over time, like mine, you kept adding new features that you thought people would like and changing the core concept until it gets to a point where it's not even something that you were originally excited about. It's become something entirely different. And at that point, you've got to figure out if it's something that you even want to make. A lot of times we get so into just making it and then we change things and we make it more and more for other people to the point where we realize this game isn't even for us anymore. And at the end of the day, if you're not making the game for you, you're doing something wrong. You should want to play your game. It should be the exact experience you want to have. And if you find yourself adding things or making things for other people, you're doing it wrong. I know with this game, after everything I added in and everything that I thought people would like, I handed it off to a few people to play, and I thought, oh, they're gonna love this. I gave it to the target demographic that I thought would love this game, and they didn't really respond to it. And I realized that's because there was too much going on that didn't work together. I had strayed too far away from what appealed to me about this game. And so now I kind of have to take a step back and look at what parts of this game still appeal to me as the game developer, and also as someone that will play this game, my own game. And when I pick this project up again and I start picking it apart, the main thing that I'm going to look for are what are the elements that appeal to me and how can I make those the game. I don't need it to have an open world, I don't need a lot of collectibles, I know I like the card battler system, I know I like the cute characters, but now I've got to take these things that appeal to me and at some point down the road make this into a game for me. And the truth is, finding out how that's going to work is just going to take some time. It's going to need to marinate. There's art advice that when you're working on something for too long, sometimes to know if it's still good or to know what needs to be fixed, you have to put it in a drawer or close the file, do something, and then come back to it later. And that's one of the reasons I'm putting this game away for now. And the other side of this coin, making the game for the right reasons, is making sure that you're not just trying to hop on a trend that you know is popular right now. Honestly, I see this less in indie games, and I see, well, unless you count Hollow Knight clones, but I'm not trying to start a fight on here. But I see a lot in AAA game development where one idea or one style of game will get successful and everyone will dogpile on it. I mean, look at the free-to-play model. The market is oversaturated with it. And the reason a lot of these games failed was because they were made to make money. They were made to hop on a trend. They weren't made for the right reasons. They weren't made because people were passionate about having to make this game for themselves. And so if you're making a game, just really make sure you're making it for the right reasons. Number 4, the last reason, and one that I think is a little more abstract, is that yes, sometimes external factors will make you want or need to drop your game. And that's valid. And this can be a lot of different things. This could be losing your job. This could be having a kid. This could be a major world event. This could be your mental health. For me, one of the reasons I decided to drop this game that I'd consider an external factor is the boom of AI right now. I cannot tell you how many times my game pops up for somewhere on Threads, here on YouTube, and I get a comment that's, oh, that's AI. Or worse, people just don't interact at all because they think it's AI. These characters that I put work into making, that I hand drew, that I pieced together in the engine, are just brushed aside because of the state of the world that we live in being saturated by AI. And so I honestly had to consider this factor of, is it worth pushing through that, or is it just probably time to accept that this is the worst time I could have tried to make a game with this type of art? Especially because so much of what I was planning was all of these different worlds that have different art styles, which is why all 4 of the main characters in my party have slightly different art styles because they were supposed to be from different worlds. But the outside eye, it just looks like I slapped a bunch of AI art together and called it a day. Added some mechanics on it. And so inherently, a bit of the whimsy, the intrigue of these characters that would make up some of the appeal of the game is just gone. And that's something I'd consider an external factor. It's not something I can control. And sometimes you're going to face that. And so for me, that was one of the major considerations for deciding whether or not I should keep working on this game now and try and make the changes that it's going to need, try and repair it, or if I should just drop it and come back to it later when maybe things are a little less hostile. The game I'm working on now, I don't think that's going to be a problem. And if you're interested in finding out more about what that is, make sure you like and subscribe, because there are going to be devlogs for that coming out hopefully pretty soon. But as far as Too Much Quests, I am putting it on the shelf, and a big part of that is this external factor. And now that I've given you the 4 reasons why you should quit making your indie game, I'll stop dragging you around. If you want to play my game for free, or at least the little bit that I made of it to test the mechanics, it looks fun to you if you've been liking it through this video, link's in the description. It's just on itch.io. It's going to be real buggy. I didn't make it with the intention that a lot of people were going to play it. It was just for a select few to kind of test how things feel. But go for it. Okay. Download it, links in the description, and see if any of these points that I've made resonate with you while playing it. And if you like it, hop in my Discord, the link is also in the description, or come back here to this video, or message me directly on Threads or something, and let me know what parts of it you like. So anyways, I won't drag out the end of this video. I don't like making negative videos like, oh, quit, fail, which is why I always try and lead with positivity. We are all game developers, or people that are interested in game development if you watch this much of the video. And realistically, I just want you to be successful. I want you to be healthy in the way that you approach making games, and I want you to be informed about when it's time to quit and when it's not. There's a quote that's typically attributed to Buddha, but it's not really him, that has always resonated with me, and that's, in the end, only 3 things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. I'm 3 Gnomes. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.